Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
This is another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And my name is Steve Lacy.
And we are with a company called JSL Solutions. We bring you StreamingChurch.tv, which is a platform for streaming video.
Yes, and apps and websites and church management systems.
Steve was checking his phone there while I was talking, and
Yes.
I was waiting for him to talk about apps, which is churchapplive.com. Which is another product we have. And then we have myflock.com, which is a content management, church management system. So we bring you this podcast on a weekly basis. Most of the time it's related to tech things, although our company serves churches and ministries for the most part. And Steve and I both have a lot of experience working with churches and ministries. And so sometimes we will get on other topics that might be more along the lines of, maybe what we're going to talk today. Today.
So what are we talking about today?
We're going to pose the question here to you. Should your church advertise? And I'm going to give you a heads up, and I'm going to say, yes, it should. But then we're going to give you some stats here, and we're going to give you some reasons. And then we're going to talk about if you're really going to advertise, here's what
how do you go about it? And
how do you do it, and what do you do there? So we're going to try to get this all done in about 28 minutes.
Sounds good.
So that's the idea. But we'll get off topic from time to time as far as tech stuff and talk about leadership stuff or whatever, church, management, whatever, because we've done it. So we just want to help you. That's all we're here for, is to help you.
So you've got some good stats to
Got some stats. So according to the Hartford Institute of Religion Research, over 40% of Americans say that they go to church weekly. In reality, less than 20% are actually going to church. So you got about 80% of Americans out there that don't really see going to church as a big priority Sunday mornings.
Yeah. I'd heard the 40% stat before. I thought it was 40% are say they're associated with a church.
Well, I'm just quoting from Hartford Institute.
That makes sense.
Here. So,
and then half of those are actually going to that church.
And the thing is, we know it, and anybody listening here that's involved in church leadership knows that, there are some people that say, I go to church all the time, and you see them maybe once or twice a month, that's what they do. So there's another guy, Southern Baptist Research, you probably heard of, Thomas Rainier. He says that he believes that there are going to be between 8,000 and 10,000 churches closing within the next year.
Wow.
So, and I don't know if those numbers are accurate, but there's a lot of churches closing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No doubt about that.
How many churches are there in the U.S.?
I couldn't tell you.
I think it's around 400,000.
Really? Okay.
I think I'm pulling that out from data from probably 10 years ago or so, but I think it's around 400,000.
Well, they come and go. But and we're going to get into that a little bit. But so the next question is, why are churches, why is this in decline? Why is church attendance, going down the drain here? And there's lots of different reasons. Some attribute it to technology or the lack of technology in the churches today, which we've talked about here. We've beaten that drum quite a bit, how you should do your best to get on the tech bandwagon, so to speak. Some people believe Barna Group, which is pretty reputable, they've done a study that said the two main reasons why people don't attend church is because they feel like they can find God somewhere else or elsewhere, or the church isn't relevant to them. And then our fine generation, the millennials, they say that they opt out of church because of its irrelevance, also the hypocrisy, the moral failures of the leadership and all that stuff. So, and I think all of that is true.
Sound like a little bit of sarcasm when you say our fine millennials, huh?
Well, I'm not trying to be mean about it. We quote them a lot, and we should, because they are a group we're trying to reach. If you're in church leadership today, you should be trying to reach the millennials.
Right.
But, So we quote them a lot.
Yeah.
As far as stats and what they like, what they don't like.
Another thing that's here that you didn't mention was talking about competition.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
competition is basically competing with other things going on over the weekend, whether it's sports or games or...
Right. We're going to get into that in a little bit when
Okay.
it comes to advertising.
All right.
But yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of competition now. And there's other churches too that are, we can get into that. A lot of people would say, well, I'm not in competition with the church across the street. Okay, I hope you're not. But if they're doing a better job of reaching people and connecting with their attenders,
right,
then maybe you ought to look at what they're doing and maybe you should improve. But that's a whole nother topic. One of the things what we're talking about today is, should your church advertise? And so I believe, because of all those things we just mentioned and more, that you need to get the word out.
Right. And it's kind of it's also, I mean, this ties into business, because a lot of times the business owners would say, well, things aren't doing very great, and so I don't have the money to advertise, and things continue to do worse because you aren't advertising, and it's kind of a downward spiral, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's advertising's in some ways it's simple, in other ways it's complicated. It's simple if you found something that works.
Yes.
But if you're not finding what works for you, and we're going to try to get into that a little bit today, because most people probably listening to this podcast would say, yeah, the church should somehow or another advertise in some venue. I mean, you want to reach people, right? You want to connect with people. The problem is there's a lot of bad advertising that churches do, and we can get into that a little bit here.
And the best means to get people to church is word of mouth, right? Where it's not
for everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's for everything.
Pretty much.
Right.
Every product you have
and
out there.
I think we're going to talk about that too, because that ties into some of the social aspects.
But, so let's just jump into it. I've got a lot of experience in this. Well, at least a fair amount of experience in it because of pastoring and I'm an executive pastor right now, part-time, and we're doing advertising at the church I'm at. And I've helped start some churches, and I've seen some really good results if you find the right venue for your advertising, the right niche.
So you started pretty much planted, took over a very, very small church in Kansas, right?
There was a group of 4 families. And so I always kind of say we restarted it because we took everything that they had been used to and changed everything.
Advertising was a big part of that, right?
It was a big part of that.
Yeah.
It's a big part of that. There was a Christian radio station that was opening up about the same time we were in that area. I have a background in Christian broadcasting, and so I just jumped right on that thing. And then I made my commercials very unique, which is something we can get into here if we have time. But if you're going to advertise, you've got to make sure your commercials are unique. They're good. They're telling the truth about who you are.
Yeah, the church I'm with now, which we've been with for over 21 years, we came based on a radio ad.
Oh, okay. I think I remember you telling me.
Yeah, and it was a very unique radio ad.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what that was. I think that was before I came on staff, wasn't it? I'm sure it was.
Yeah. It was before you had come on staff, but it was very unique, and it was kind of geared toward it really kind of hit us where we were at the time, in that we were new to town and kind of church shopping.
Do you remember the gist of the ad?
Yes, I do. It was set up as though you were visiting a bunch of different churches, and they give you like a 15-second, you're at the Church of the Mystic Pancake, and had some, and the family goes, I'm out of here, and then you go to some other strange church, and it's got really strange stuff going on, and then you go to the church we're at now, which it's hip and happening, and so it was just kind of showing the experiences of and it was funny. It was really had a very comedic tone to it.
I'm trying to think. It ran on my radio station that I was managing, I think.
It might have. I don't know.
So I probably produced it. I just can't remember it now. I think it's probably Jeff Love's idea.
Probably.
I don't think I was at Alive at that time. I knew of Jeff and those guys. It
was a very, I don't know, artistic, you would say. It was very well done.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought it was funny and entertaining. And so
I think any ad you do, there's radio, TV, print, or internet, it needs to stick out. It's got to be unique, in my opinion.
It's got to be the purple cow.
Well, yeah, I think so. And that when I was starting this church in Kansas in 2001, that's what I did. I did some very unique ads, and I got attention. I got a little criticism from some other church leaders on it, a little bit, but we got people in the door. It worked. It worked for us. And there's other things that work for us too, which maybe I'll talk about here in a moment. So let's talk about if you're going to advertise. So again, we're going to presuppose here with this question, should your church advertise? We're presupposing that you would say, yeah, probably so. If you don't think your church should advertise, you can listen and we'll try to give you some reasons here, so to speak. But the bottom line is if you want to reach people, you've got to go to where they're at. And so you got to identify, which is probably our first point here, identify groups of people in your community, and you need to base it on their interests. So the bottom line here is if your people, the people in your community, wherever you're at right now, if they're not going to church, then they're probably thinking about something else, which you mentioned earlier, different competition, right? There's things out there, what gets them excited? What cranks their shaft, so to speak? What gets them, worked up and passionate? What are they passionate about? Sports? Is it an artsy community, or is it books? Is it a health, is the community as a whole that you're trying to reach very much exercise oriented, health oriented, music oriented, those kind of things?
Yeah. What we would do, and this kind of applies to business as well. You kind of identify your target audience. And for us, we identified Tucson Tom. We kind of made up this, this figure that was the average guy, and we laid out, okay, is Tucson Tom married? How old is he? What's he do? What's he do on the weekends? What's he do for work? And kind of captured all the attributes around what this person would be, what they're like. So identify what they're like. And then you start to put together your advertising to say, well, we got this Tucson Tom guy. What would be appeal? Would he be listening to the radio? Would he be on the web instead, or would he be, where would he be to get the advertising? So to figure out what venue, and then as I put my ad together, what's going to appeal to that particular person?
Yeah. There's a study. The United Methodist Church launched a while back a $20 million campaign, and they were targeting 18 to 34-year-olds, which is good. And the message of their campaign was "Rethink Church." And they've done some advertising over the years, but this particular campaign, they aimed it specifically, at this younger generation. But also they wanted to kind of change their image of their church, from something that's kind of passive to more active, more of an active community, something that does that, that's more social and all that stuff. So now here's the point, though. If you're going to do something like that with your church and your local community, whatever it is you're going to use, you've got to fulfill your promise. So you know what I'm saying? So,
you can't
say, hey, we're a young, energetic church, and we are really socially active or whatever it is, and then people go there, and your church maybe isn't that young, and they're not really
that active,
active or concerned about their community. You see what I'm saying? Right. So you're going to have to make sure that whatever you're going to advertise your church as, it's going to have to be.
You need to be that
legit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll fall into the category of hypocrisy.
Right.
And so you really got to do that. So again, you've got to look at your own congregation,
which is another aspect of advertising. You want to make sure that you're authentic.
Yep.
That you come across as authentic. So if you're going to advertise something that's inconsistent with who you are, then that's being inauthentic.
Which really leads to the second point. You've really got to discover the type of person or the group your church can reach most effectively. So, if like for instance, the church I'm helping out right now, I work there just on the weekends part-time. We have had good results with one specific segment. Where we've done some advertising on one specific station, and we're getting results. The problem is that group of listeners is in an older demographic.
Uh-huh.
So they're coming, but they're older. So they're in their maybe 50s.
You don't want the old people?
Well, and I get criticism like that, like you just said. You don't like the old people? No, it's not that
you
we
are
want
the old people.
We don't want the,
Well,
I fit in that category now. But I would like to see our church reach more of that younger group in their 20s and 30s, okay? And yet the place we're advertising doesn't necessarily have that demographic, but we're getting results.
Right.
So what do? You're getting people coming in the door. They're not maybe necessarily 20 or 30 or 40, but they're more 50 or 60.
May reshape the heartbeat of your church, right?
Well,
the personality of your church.
I think and this is for another podcast, but I think there's ways you attract who you are. I still believe that. You attract who you are. So I think for us to attract younger people, we're going to have to, somehow or another, get some younger people and get them involved in leadership.
Right.
That's a whole other category.
Yeah.
But getting back to the second point, you've really got to discover the type of person that your church can most effectively reach and connect with. So, all these things we're talking about here, if you're traditional, and you're trying to reach people that are non-traditional, it's not going to work. Or if you're in more of a Pentecostal, charismatic section of your church is more like that, but you're reaching people that are, much more traditional in their values, well, not in their values, but traditional in their form of worship and religion, then they're probably not going to connect if you're Pentecostal in your style. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so, so you're going to have to really work on that. And then the other thing is, if you really want to connect with people on a deeper level, you've really got to identify what that group is passionate about.
Mm-hmm. What makes them tick?
Getting back to your Tucson Tom, maybe a little bit more. You really got to look a little closer to that and see where that's at. But it's really hard. It's really kind of hard to do this without putting some energy into it. And advertising is all about trying to persuade people. That's all it is. And so you've got to figure out, okay, if I'm trying to hit a certain group, what do these people care about?
Right. What motivates them? And
and then the bottom line is too, as we're talking about, should you advertise? And the answer to that question, I would think, should be yes. You also want to connect with those people you're trying to reach on an emotional level. So what that means is, you want to help convince them that coming to your church would be a good thing for them.
As opposed to a rational level, right?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
A logical level.
Yeah. The studies have shown. So, and again, there's a gal that says, her name is Ann Farah. She says it's the idea of connecting with the heart over the head. So when it comes to like secular things like purchasing things, purchasing seems like a pretty logical, rational kind of thing. But the fact is, she's saying that we as humans don't normally make decisions rationally. We make decisions emotionally.
Yes.
Over the majority of the people. Now, you're an exception to that.
Oh, I probably do the same.
Maybe when it comes to your car.
Maybe I do. I'm sure I do more. Yeah. But and what you're pointing to is what brings someone across the line to say, yeah, I'm going to buy that, is 90% emotional, where their emotions are at, as opposed to where their logical reasoning would be, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. That's what they get at here. That's what the so-called advertising experts say.
Yeah, so you've got to know what motivates the people in order to put the advertising in place to get people to cross the line, to come and visit.
Yeah. Backing up a little bit to this targeting thing, a little bit more targeting your audience or targeting your advertiser. Here's a guy here in town who he targets his stuff. His whole church is targeted towards bikers or people of that alternative kind of style.
Yeah, we have some customers that are geared towards that as well.
Do we?
Yeah,
bikers.
They're all geared to Actually, the name of their ministry's got bikers in the
that's right.
the ministry name.
Yeah, one of our streaming customers. That's right. So that's what they've done. There's a guy who I was working with out in Kansas when I was pastoring. Cowboy. He was doing a cowboy church.
Yeah, that's pretty popular too. So the biker, there's several biker-based church and several cowboy-based church. Actually, we've had and still do have churches that are coming from both those backgrounds.
Yeah. So,
or from those niches, I guess.
But one of the things, like, this guy, and when we're talking about a niche, you can't really change your church. If you're going to do it, then you're probably going to go through years and years of misery. You might be able to do it, but it will take some time. So we're talking about some of the people here, like the biker church and the cowboy church. Most of those people started out fresh. They started the church as a biker church or as a cowboy church.
Right.
So, but yeah. So, I mean, all these kind of things. And so they're trying to connect with people where they're at. And there's other niches out there as well. So anyhow, as we move on here about advertising. So advertising, again, getting back to this connecting with people's heartstrings. You want to, if you're going to have a campaign or a commercial or whatever it is you're going to do, you want to really, talk about how you can connect with people emotionally. And so that could be your graphics. It could be your copy on your ad. It could be a lot of different things. But the bottom line is that you want to connect with people emotionally.
Right. So, and I think we're gonna talk about this, but what is the right avenue to? I've got choices of. You're a big radio guy, so there's radio, there's newspaper, there's magazine, there's billboards, there's social, there's web.
Yep, it's a big. Right, so that's a $64,000 question.
So, what is the right answer for me?
I don't think there is a right answer.
Well, I think if you go through this process and you identify who your target is,
right, that's what
and you kind of lay the personality of that person out, and you go, well, this person is never going to be on Facebook, so I'm going to rule that out. Or this person spends, 4 hours a day on Facebook, so maybe that's a good. Or they're on the computer, then maybe the radio. May not be a good option, but then the Facebook piece would.
That's your answer. It's there's no answer that fits all churches. Right. Okay, for instance, when I helped with a church here in town in the early 90s, we did a deal where there used to be this thing in Tucson called the Tucson Shopper. And I think every community has one. Now, I don't know if it's still going on or not. I think it still is, but it's basically a weekly little mini newspaper that has ads in it, car ads, different
dealer ads,
but there's different little things in, and it was called the Tucson Shopper, if I remember right.
I remember this.
Used to be the Dandy Dime too, was one of them. And so the guy I was working with said, I'm going to buy an ad, a full page ad, but I want it to be either the front or the back cover. I don't want to have it inside because it would come in your mailbox. And you'd pull it out of your mailbox with all your other junk mail, and you'd see the front cover or you'd see the back, and if you really liked the deal and was digging through it, then you'd see an ad inside it. But so he would only buy front or back, and we got results from that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Results,
and he was very consistent with it too.
And that's the other thing we were going to get into. We can say it right now. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to have to be consistent at it. I mean, I found that from both perspectives. So, as you know, I was in broadcasting for almost 20 years.
Yeah, so you're selling radio spots,
right? And I wasn't a salesperson, but I was.
You were around them.
I was around them, and I went on sales calls. I produced commercials. I did a lot of things in management, and our whole thing was, buy 3 months worth of ads, or buy 6 months, or better yet, buy a whole year. Sign a year contract and we'll give you this deal. And I know from the other side of the coin, from the other side of the table is, well, my gosh, I'm going to have to commit to thousands of dollars of money to do this. What if it doesn't work? And that's a big question. But I will say this, unless you're consistent, it's not going to work, or at least it's not going to work very well.
Right.
And we run into that even with our own company.
Right.
There's things that you have to be consistent. It doesn't matter. So, and then from the other side, from my as a pastor, and I did this, with the thing on the Tucson Shopper, the little deal. Eventually, we went into some radio, and then we went into TV. And then when I started my own church, I did the radio thing right off the bat, and I was consistent at it. And because I was consistent, and the ads were unique. And we did, in other words, there's a lot of little things you need to make sure you're doing right. If you've got people coming to your church and you're telling them it's this kind of a church and it's not, you're blowing your money.
Right.
But if you're doing everything you say in the ad, and people come and you're consistent with the ad, you will get results, providing you're in the right niche, the right market.
Yeah, and related to this is, since we offer the MyFlock, we'll often get customers that will call and say, when I put in, Toronto Baptist Church, I'm not on the front page of the search results in Google's. I need you guys to fix that to make sure that we're the very first result when you type in, Baptist Church Northeast or whatever. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize that getting those coveted Google response sites is not easy. There is no way to go and fix that. So what a lot of times we'll recommend is to take out AdWords.
Right.
And so AdWords is Google's paid advertising opportunity. And early on when we started doing this, it was initially a very affordable route to go. So if churches in your town are not actively pursuing Google AdWords, it's a great way to get a lot of response for very little money. So yeah, the AdWords based on an auction. So if more of the churches are participating in your town, then the prices are going to be, they're going to be competing for the same keywords.
Right.
So the prices will go up. But anyway, you may want to look into that. It's a good web-based opportunity for advertising. But if your target's not on the web,
right. Well, I think you bring up a good point. And there's other things too. You mentioned showing up on the first page. I mean, some of it also has to do with updating your websites, putting original material on your website.
Yeah, there's whole
meta tags,
industry around improving your search engine optimization.
Yeah.
But the surefire way to get first page results is to go ahead and pay Google for a paid ad.
Right.
And a lot of times that's a really affordable way to do it.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a good point. We're out of time now. And I think that's a good place to end. But I guess I would just reiterate that I think your church should advertise. And then it's really up to you to do some detective work, to do some research. And it's going to be based on, what you are already, who you are already as a church.
And a very focused ad avenue, right?
On trying to target who you want,
right?
And hopefully
and where
who
they
you
live,
want.
and what motivates them.
Yeah, and again, I'm still going to say this again. I'll beat a dead horse here, but you attract who you are. So, and of course, as I just said earlier here, we like younger people, but we don't have a lot of younger people. How do we do that? Well, you start one person at a time, I guess, and you just begin to take those younger people that you do have, maybe train them up a little more to be more involved in the ministry so other people can see them more, maybe give them a job to do announcements on the platform or lead music or maybe share once in a while in a message. I don't know, but you've got to get, you've got to attract who you are. And then once you can do that, momentum will begin to build. And I don't know if this helped or not. I hope it helped some people today. Maybe it will get you thinking a little bit.
Sure.
So, hey, you got questions about this or something you might want to add to it? Well, just send us an email, support@StreamingChurch.tv. And we are also on iTunes. Look for Church Solutions Podcast and subscribe to our podcast. Review us. We're on YouTube. The audio version's on YouTube. Look for it. Maybe probably under the YouTube channel, StreamingChurch.tv is probably where it's at. But Church Solutions Podcast. And I don't know where we're at. NewMediaMinistries.tv. That's another one. And you can always go to our website and go into resources, StreamingChurch.tv. And you'll find our podcast listed under resources. All right. He is Steve Lacy. I'm Phil Thompson. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us today. And we hope that we have helped you. If we can help you with anything else tech-related or any other thing that's church-related or ministry-related, let us know. Have yourself a great day. God bless. And we will catch you next time for another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.